Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Annie Kramer, and I am a senior director here at Carnegie. And I am so pleased to be here with you this afternoon with Ken Higgins, who is the general manager of student success. Yes, he is here from Technolutions, and we have a wonderful session in store for you. This session, in case you're wondering where you are, is titled "It Takes a Slate Campus, exploring Slate for student success." So this is, and Ken and I were just having this conversation before we get started about how student success can be a little bit nebulous, like who has it, whose responsibility is it, and trying to make a case for the resources. We know it is often under-resourced, and there's often not necessarily a central directive on who's on first, and that it's a critically needed system and a critically needed solution, and processes support people to be able to do this work for managing your students' success through the lifetime that they are on your campus. So before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping items for all of you. So the first is that this session is being recorded. So if you did not know that, now you do. We are recording this, and they will be available to attendees and those that registered by the end of next week. So we will alert all of you of that. The wonderful thing about this session is that with our presenters, you will have the chance to answer or ask some questions. And we would ask that you use at the very bottom of your little Zoom bar, you'll see a Q&A feature with two little chat bubbles. That is where we would prefer that you post your questions so that I would be able to see them. If we can answer some of them in real time, we will. If not, Ken has promised us that we will have time for Q&A at the end of his presentation. So we'll have plenty of time for Q&A and discussion at the end. But don't, if we can avoid posting this in the Whova app but use the Zoom functionality, that would be awesome. If you have any needs, if you have any questions throughout the Carnegie Connection Conference today, tomorrow, or Wednesday or Thursday, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. You can reach out to us at conferences@carnegiehighereducation.com, or in the Whova app, you can it's Ask Organizers Anything, which is such a great call out because it really does set the expectation that we should be able to do just about anything that you need from us over the course of the next couple of days. And then finally, of course, we would encourage you to leverage social media to let it, to share with us how you feel like the conference went and if there was any valuable insights. And you can use the connection, hashtag the connection, or tag or tag at Carnegie HQ. In LinkedIn and other places. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ken. I can't wait for this session. We are so happy that all of you are with us, and I'll turn it over to you to take it away. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie. That was a lot covered in a little bit of time. That was great. And thanks everybody for being here. As Annie said, my name is Ken Higgins, General Manager of Student Success and Strategic Partnerships here at Technolutions. Can everybody see my screen? I'll take the deafening silence as yes.
You're good.
Regardless, yeah, cool. You can't answer the question, so that's great. Yeah, so here to talk a little bit and shamelessly plug student success. If I've seen you before, or if we've met, I see a lot of familiar faces or familiar names in the chat. I'm back to talk to you about student success again. If you're here for the first time and you're a Slate user and you haven't heard about student success, or you're kind of here just saying, let me learn a little bit more, hear what he has to say, that's awesome, and I love that. And maybe there are some of you that don't have Slate at all, and you're kind of like, what is Slate? So that's cool too. Thank you all for being here. I hope just kind of time expectations, doubling down what Annie said, I've got my timer here. I'll talk for about 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to get done at around 2:30 Eastern time, and then we'll open it up for questions so that you get plenty of time to ask questions and then get on to the next session. Okay. And somebody texted me during and was like, is that a gun case in the back or behind? It's a guitar case. I brought it to the office just to show off and say that I could play the guitar. It's actually empty. I can't play the guitar. It's really just decoration. Okay, so what is Slate? For those of you that might not know, or maybe I pull the room, just by weirdly selectively show of hands, does everybody know what Slate is, or how many use it? How do you define it, right? Slate is the I think really kind of first and probably still only the CRM that was purpose built for higher education, right? From our start, 25 years ago-ish. It was really constructed and architected and coded to be uh, for a specific audience, and that was higher ed, particularly admissions offices back then, right? It is comprehensive in its feature set, meaning you can carry data, it's record management, you can query on that data, you can use it as a highly functional, comprehensive communication tool. You can use events, you can use forms, you can use portals. So it does an awful lot of stuff. I'm not going to kind of spend too much time on that because if you're here, you probably at least know or you have Slate, right? But there's an important kind of next question, which is like, okay, well, I've got Slate for admissions, but like you're here, this session's about student success, right? What's the difference? Is it a different product? Do I have to buy something separately? No. The feature set and the tool set is identical, right? Slate is Slate. What really shifts when you start thinking about what is student success or what's the student success use case, it's really defining how you're using those tools and how you are customizing the features and the database, okay? Which I think is valuable. It's important to make it clear that you have all of these things that I'm going to be talking about and these examples that I'm bringing up. You have that capability to do with what you have now in your Slate instance. Okay. There's a feature coming out that was announced at Summit and coming out really soon, actually, called enrollments, which is actually just unique to student success. But since that's not out yet, like you still have all the feature sets that your database has and your admissions colleagues use, right? You can buy a separate database just for student success purposes, right? So you'd have your admissions one and then your student success one. Or you could, by way of kind of record segmentation and kind of permissioning, use the same database for both segments of records that you have. You can use it for your admission processes and your admission records, and you can use it for your current student records and your current student processes. Which we can get into in a little bit later, and I'll show you some examples, some cool use cases actually. So then it's like, okay, cool. Well, what's student success? Annie alluded to it or kind of teased it. Like, that's a tough question. And honestly, it depends on who you ask. The answer is completely fluid to who you ask and when and what type of school they're involved in. There isn't really a singularly defined definition. Oftentimes it's a lot different depending on the university. It means something different. And I think as solution providers like a Slate or like any of the other tools that are out there that deal with currently enrolled students, they need to understand that varying kind of nuance of the school to be able to really create the tool set that's important for that part of the life cycle. If we treat admissions as one part of the life cycle, current students or student success as the current student part of the life cycle, and then advancement, we're talking about the middle. And that's the most nebulous, I think Annie said it, nebulous or kind of amorphous area, because it's not just one office that deals with student success. It's not just one office's responsibility to see through a student through graduation or retain them from first and second year, or make sure that they have all the courses that they need, or to teach them. So it's messy. Oftentimes there's a lot of stakeholders involved. But that's also a good acknowledgement for how the use case can be built inside of Slate, right? And humor me here, because a lot of you are probably familiar with this, but this is what student success anyway. But then these animations or these graphics are really representative of what I would call like a classic admissions mindset or mission, right? And really what kind of grows out to the entire university. There is this persistent messaging of get the incoming class, get the application numbers, yield them, make the financial adjustments to work on the discount, or to kind of get the amount of financial aid that's needed to enroll that class, and then immediately do the same thing again next year, right? Get the incoming class, yield, make the financial aid adjustments, make the class, get to census date or get to move-in weekend, start thinking about the next class, right? There's nothing wrong with that, because that's how I think universities need to operate from a net new, right? Everybody's always interested in net new tuition, net new class. And the challenge, I think that, and to be clear, there's an awful lot of resource that's put into admissions efforts, admissions and enrollment efforts. A lot of the budget, typically, I'm a former user of Slate and in admissions and financial aid. I mean, it is top of mind at all cabinet meetings. It's usually a huge topic at board of trustees meetings. They care an awful lot about the incoming class, the discount, and what the class looks like, right? So my challenge is to say, great, there's a huge amount of resources pumped into making the class, getting the discount, getting the right types of students in as net new. What if that same effort or those same resources were funneled into retention and success strategies, and tools or resources like a current student CRM? Because retention is a national challenge. It's all over the news, really. It's one of the epidemic, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's a national challenge, right? At the best projections, the average four-year graduation rate is somewhere in the 60%. The first to second year retention rates or persistence rates are somewhere around 70%. So without getting too much detail, let's say there's an argument out there that says at any given school, anywhere, any year, 3 out of 10 students will leave the institution after their first year, every single year, guaranteed. And that number doesn't jive with me. I don't like that. Not only that, but really, it's almost like, okay, cool. The recruitment of the new is kind of the old, right? And retention is the new wave to focus on, where you can actually spend more time and have a large impact on budget, on revenue. Again, I don't like talking about it like it's a business, but it is. I mean, you got to make money to keep the doors open and to fund the school. So the impact can be great if you increase the percentage, or the higher the retention, the better type thing, right? Aside, irrespective of the money and kind of the business side of it, you're talking about like a customer experience, the student experience. You're really kind of amplifying and making them feel good about their time at the school, if you're giving them what they need to be able to stay, to be able to graduate on time, to kind of have them feel like they've had a fulfilled experience, right? So it's like, what if, right? Okay, cool. So what are schools interested in, right? This is, we've asked this question a bunch. I'd be interested in the chat, even though I can't see it, but like maybe in your questions, what are you interested in, right? What we hear an awful lot of are some of these kind of key phrases and terms. I don't want something that's difficult to look at and engage with. Full stop, period. We have faculty members, we have advisors, we have a lot of non-technical users that do not need to take a lot of time to learn a new tool or learn a new system. We need calendar management, right, for those appointments and events of advisors. I need to see, as an advisor or a faculty member or a student's care specialist, I need kind of a snapshot of a student where I can look up a record and see all of the things that I need to see about that student in one space, right? This centralized data hub, where I don't have to have the LMS open and my banner, and my SIS open and financial aid system and Slate. Those wouldn't go away, but rather, is there one space where I can go to where all of that data is kind of centralized, right? A place to manage notes centrally, communication and just kind of media to communicate with, whether it's text, email, print, so on and so forth, in one spot. And then reporting tools, right? The reality is that a lot of this amorphous kind of blob that student success is because it's all these departments. It's advising, it's athletics, it's career development. Note that, admissions has one office, right? Or advancement and giving has one office. There's one goal. But all of these, there's 8 of them there. You could kind of say, do those have impact on student success or kind of currently enrolled students? Absolutely. Do all of those 8 departments or kind of stakeholders collaborate? Is there a cohesive understanding of mission and effort? Nope. Right? Do all of them use the same tool? Definitely not, right? You've got your admissions CRM, your advancement CRM. Hopefully those are Slate, but not guaranteed. Athletics, you've got you've got an awful lot of options. Clubs and orgs and event management, your SIS isn't going to be the same as these other things. Your LMS isn't going to be the same. FinAid, maybe you're using PeopleSoft or PowerFades, right? ResLife, maybe you've got StarRes. So you've got disparate systems. I'm not suggesting that there is one system to replace all of these, but rather some kind of centralized hub that could feed the information from all of these various places into one, right? This leads to a lot of potential cost savings from a systems perspective, potentially from a human resource perspective, right? The individuals who are responsible. We need these offices, or again, I'm kind of preaching to the choir, talking about this kind of from my soapbox, but like we want these departments to work collaboratively towards that student experience. And we need these systems to work together and collaborate, at least from a data perspective, right? So that's my kind of, waxing poetic about the challenge, the student success challenge. What does it mean? What's the reality? I think has been outlined, right? It can be messy, right? Jumping now into a couple of examples. These are all Slate users, and I'm tiptoeing around kind of between a couple of presentations that they've done to highlight or really give you kind of the 30,000 foot look about what they did to consolidate and really kind of use Slate in the efforts of student success and some of their efficiencies. So first up, is EKU, Eastern Kentucky University, which is a fantastic place in Richmond, Kentucky. Beautiful spot, and they've got an awesome team down there. And what this presentation was really kind of similar to what we're talking about today. I'm borrowing some of the slides because I think it's actually more prep. It's a real use case as opposed to me kind of making one up, right? They needed really to manage appointments and communication. They had a lot of tools that were disparate and they couldn't get it together. So their project overview is really about what they planned on, what they built, and then how they kind of tested and executed it. And I'll show you what the end result is. Just to give you an idea of what exists at some schools, you might see this org chart. These are all, not all of them are really Slate-centric positions, but most of them are, almost all of this. So again, if you're like, wow, this is not me, there's only one of me, right? There's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? But note that there's varying iterations of this. They happen to have a student success operations and innovation office that allows them this kind of flexibility, right? Ultimately, what they wound up with was using Slate for advising and tutoring appointments. And they used the active scheduler tool and a portal experience to forward face to the students to ultimately reduce the number of disparate systems that they were using, kind of centralize the processes inside of Slate. And I mean, the numbers kind of speak for themselves. 2,500 scheduler sessions attended, over almost 3,000 students. Very cool option here, the drop-ins, right? Which I know is a huge challenge for a lot of schools. They say, we've got the scheduled stuff. That's no problem. We've got this forward-facing kind of standardized formatted calendar. But what about drop-ins, right? So their active scheduler was able to manage that, right? And then up to literally thousands of workshop events. And what that resulted in, there can be correlation. I'll say it's causation, but you know, we can say that there was actually an impact on retention, right? Um, Making these processes aware and kind of prevalent throughout the student's experience to say, by the way, you're going to hear from us in the Student Success and Innovations office during the handoff from admissions to current student efforts, right? And there's huge value in kind of getting them used to the world that they're going to be experiencing. I think the beautiful part was there was no break in customer experience. The student, as an incoming, an applicant and as an accepted student, enrolled student, didn't see a huge break in the type of communication that they were getting, the type of handholding and kind of service they were getting. So by using the Slate for Student Success tool set as a tool set, that customer experience was really kind of fluid or consistent. And again, it may or may not have had positive impact on that retention number coming up, right? Then you start talking, a lot of these conversations revolve around like, hey, we're talking about saving money right now. We pay 7 different contracts to do kind of one thing. Can we push all of those into Slate? This one was AccuCamp, and some of these sound familiar. Acuity, AccuCampus, Calendly, WCO Online, and Check Appointments, right? Almost all of them were, most of those are like scheduling kind of calendar integration tools. And that was solved by them using the scheduler and events tool in Slate. You can see that this is from 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, really 2023. They saved 20 grand, right? Right there. And this would have been one of my slides if it wasn't their slides too. You might say, God, like, okay, cool, you're preaching to me all this stuff, but like, I don't know where to start. And I'm not like EKU. I don't have those human resources. I do think there's value in put a plan together. What's your goal? What do you want? What's the challenge that you're trying to solve? Get a team together or stakeholders, do your research, dig in, get the data, and then build, right? And it's way easier said. I'm like, oh, no problem, it's fine. But there is value in taking those kind of pragmatic steps. Another one, this is Ithaca College. Benjamin Costello, some of you may know him from his role now. He's at a preferred a company now. He's no longer works at Ithaca, but it was the same type of thing, right? His users wanted a user dashboard where the counselors or the faculty could kind of get a snapshot. We were talking about this kind of centralized data hub before as a want or a need. This snapshot of where the student is in their journey, what they look like, so on and so forth, right? Benjamin brought up a really good point that we run into a lot. This first bullet, right? Where they were, where they came from was data rich, information poor, meaning they had a ton of data, good data, but it was in disparate systems. The systems weren't really pushing back and forth to each other. There was no process across departments and schools, like the various schools at the college, right? And his point about, great, there is something valued in like, give them the information and see how they use that. You don't have to write out this 50-page document about a process for reaching out to a student and do this if you go this way or do this if this happens. Maybe just getting the data in front of them is a win in and of itself. We see so many use cases like that where they say, I can't tell you what Ken Higgins, the student, looks like. I don't know if he has academic holds. I don't know if he has financial holds. I don't know if he's done what he's supposed to do. So like just information oftentimes is valuable, right? Hugely valuable. The stakeholder conversation is important. Getting the people getting the end users from the user perspective, not students, but like getting the end user and like, what do you expect? What do you want? And then kind of building, this is less technical, but perhaps maybe this more university process concept of there's probably more than one person that's responsible for every student, or more than one when we were looking at all the various departments that are student success. having coaches, having tutors, having advisors, program coordinators, a representative from financial aid. They could all become users in Slate to be associated with that person's record, and allow this network team or this kind of student success team to be kind of enveloped in surrounding an individual student, right? Oh, cool. And we've got, oh, nice. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. There's a couple of questions that came into the chat, and of course I got distracted by it. I was like, I'll answer your questions at the end. Those are two actually really good questions. Yeah, sorry. Easily distracted. And then the last example I'll show, OSU, Oklahoma State, great use case, plus these Betsy Weaver and David Marriott, wonderful people, as are the two previous mentioned examples. They were really going for a one-stop, like an office of student success, right? Where they could kind of house all of these things or all of these processes in one Slate database. And all of these various offices needed to have a hand in it. The first step was like huge. They have, oh man, I can't remember how many, but like it might have been close to 100 academic advisors that all needed to be in Slate, and they all needed to manage their own their own calendar and availability, being able to hold in-person tutoring sessions or advising sessions or online. So bringing that all into Slate was hugely beneficial. They created a student portal, right? Where the student portal experience, like I was saying before about this consistent experience, customer experience, where this portal might look awfully similar to their app status portal. If you use Slate for admissions, they get an application status portal where they can upload, they're getting their decisions there. They can fulfill checklist items, providing them with a similar experience to their current, providing the current student a similar experience to their admissions, right? There's not this broken kind of user interface experience, right? Where they're forward facing to them, the options that they have. Would you like to schedule an appointment? What services are available to you? They could display information and filter via this portal that the student needed to be aware of, like holds, or here's some information about your counselor or your advisor, and their availability, right? They created advisor management dashboards. This is another hugely popular use case where it's like, I'm an advisor. I don't need to learn Slate. I don't need to be inside of Slate necessarily, but I need some type of kind of experience where I can take a look at a list of my students, a list of my advisees for whom I'm responsible. And I need some basic information about them, as you can see, kind of the core. And then if I were to click on Mallory, I can dive into her record, or if I click on her notes, or if I click on some button or experience, I can take an action as a result. Upcoming appointments too. So forward facing to the advisor, forward facing appointments, right? What's my upcoming week looking like? Graduation. This was a process they pushed hard into Slate, where similar, here's a selection set of students that fit this certain criteria. They're a senior, and it looks like they're on track to graduate, right? So then what do they need in order to graduate, right? So this graduation clearance process got pushed into Slate for the advisors to follow up, put in notes, complete processes for their list of students that were getting close to graduating, right? Or fit some kind of filter criteria, right? I breezed through those examples as glimpses of inspo, right? Kind of like good inspiration for what could be possible. And those were three, Ithaca College, OSU's big, and EKU's pretty big too. I wanted to show you kind of variance in size and scope, right? And how they were able to pull it off. To drink from the fire hose first by looking at all those examples, to maybe zoom back out and say, well, do what matters to you first. If what you need to see is like data via a dashboard, and that's important to start, good, just do that. You don't have to make the entire kind of house Slate, it is iterative and can be built iteratively. So if you're thinking about this and you say, man, all that stuff is cool, but like there's no way I'm going to be able to transfer the entire kind of advising management process into Slate just because this guy said it and there's a couple of slides on it. No. You might want to explore, well, what would a student record look like in Slate and how that might be different from an applicant in Slate, right? Maybe it's this concept of kind of carrying notes about a particular student or being aware of who and what offices and maybe who particularly engaged or interacted with that student over a period of time. That might be something that you're interested in. Maybe it's emails. There are weirdly a lack of consistent use cases of like a massive communication tool for currently enrolled students. And again, this is not knocking anybody. It's not speaking disparagingly, but like we'll get on demos and we'll say, well, how are you communicating with your currently enrolled students? And some of the answers are a BCC distribution list via Outlook, right? Or like we have an Excel spreadsheet that we copy and paste into communications, or we've got MailChimp. The deliver tool inside of Slate by itself can be super valuable for currently enrolled student efforts. Talk to them, right? Find out how they're engaging, right? And then you can start looking at that data and actually defining, okay, like are they engaging? Are they clicking what we want them to click? Are they even reading messages from us? Do they care about what we're trying to tell them? Because then that can dictate, you could use that data to say, all right, great, we need to update or we need to change. Perhaps it's a scheduler, right? So you say, yeah, we don't really have a good appointment management tool, right? I understand, and that's great. Maybe Slate is that, right? So you get to the kind of like, well, okay, so what? Like, what do I do? My challenge or my ask would be, if it's not, and I don't mean if it's not a focus of your institution, maybe it should be. And I don't mean Slate, but perhaps if retention and current student experience across the systems that you have or kind of across their life cycle, if that's not a focus of your institution, perhaps it should be. So that's a challenge, right? I would say maybe start thinking about that. Maybe poke and prod around across campus departments and find those right stakeholders that say, we do have a challenge with how we communicate with students. We do have a challenge with this paper form process that is kind of antiquated and we don't really, it hasn't been updated in a long time. If Slate can streamline a process, instead of asking, well, like, why should it? Ask why not? Like, well, we could get rid of paper forms and push them to Slate forms. This is not initially, right? Or not initially at all. There's no cost like per user. There's no cost in building a separate form or adding a couple of kind of iterative options in your already existing database. So like this is free to mess around with, right? It doesn't cost anything aside from time. I mean, I'm not diminishing that. Like that's valuable. But if you're maybe interested, you can explore without it costing anything, period. So I've talked a lot and kind of quickly. Do we want to do questions? I'm seeing stuff at the top. Hey, Andy's
Yes.
back.
Yes, we do. We've
Yeah.
got some great questions coming in from different spots, so this is awesome. I also just want to reiterate what Ken shared. And I have the pleasure of, sort of getting a chance to see under the hood of a lot of cars, and I know Ken does too, and cars being the institutions themselves.
Yeah.
And I feel like this topic is very popular and certainly at the surface for a lot of institutions right now is like, what is the journey? What does that journey look like for students? And how can we get our arms wrapped around the communications that are being sent from lots and lots of different entities on campus. Whether you're thinking about something like student success, Slate student success, or just simply trying to like audit your communications, I think it's a great exercise to do internally. Carnegie does have some,
Nice plug.
some resources, right? I know I can't help myself, but we do have
Hmm.
that. And I do have some clients that are, that are working through that. But I do want you to know that it's a very common topic right now. And it is not easy. So
Yeah.
I say that both with empathy. It's a statement, and there's empathy in that statement too. So, but let's jump into some of the questions. So I'm gonna jump to Erica's first. So her question came in through the Zoom chat, and she said, "Is there an intention to improve deliver? Some initial thoughts are, with open rates no longer being accurate, can you tell how many students really click reply? Can we color code mailings
Color
to
code.
differentiate flows? Can the mail sent filter be more efficient? Usually times out.
Oh
Curious."
man, yeah, great thoughts, Erica. Right, the open rates no longer being reliable sources because of Apple, because of just kind of the experience. Right, we've less relied, and we've kind of encouraged people to say, don't rely on that as a metric of success, Um, uh, can you tell how many students click reply is a great metric. It should be available via the tracking report of any email that goes out, but kind of looking past the simple or not simple, but like just the basic understanding. Can you guys see my screen? I'm inside of Slate,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
You're
okay, cool.
good. Yeah, we
Just
can
making
see.
sure I'm not.
Yep, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah, as opposed to you have the ability to do the tracking report and deliver that we're trying to get kind of users beyond the veil of saying, well, don't worry about this anymore because it really doesn't mean an awful lot. That we're in development of kind of I call them enhancements, yeah, or features, Erica, to kind of directly address your questions. Yeah, like what data might be more important to you as a user to be kind of popping up and red flags, or kind of an alarm going off to say this is important or this is not important, right? Can we color code mailings to differentiate flows? Great concept, or great thought. Yeah, I guess I mean, it's a good idea. So I say yes, but like Alexander would have to do something. But yeah, there might be feedback about that, because color coding is a good idea. And can the mailing sent filter be right? Sure, it usually times out. Interesting. That's nuanced. I'd love to chat more, maybe like email me or something, Erica. And I could dig in. I could look at your database, right?
Fantastic.
Lindsay
Yes, perfect.
Peterson, what a timely question.
Yes, love this from Lindsay. Fantastic.
So, curious, any update on when it might be delivered? When I say soon, I mean that with the fire of 1,000 suns.
Ooh,
Will it
haven't
solve the
heard that.
problems? Manually put a Slate appointment? And yes, it will absolutely do that. So she's asking about calendar integration, really. When I make something in Slate, will it adhere to my Outlook calendar or Google Calendar? Yes, 100%. Again, this is recorded, so forget that I said this or delete it. I was just in with Alexander this morning at noon, and he did it live for us from the active scheduler perspective. And it adhered over in Outlook like within seconds. It was pretty awesome looking. So yes, there's an update. It's going to be soon. Yes, it will solve the problem advisors having to, yeah.
If I think this is the Lindsay that I know that she's definitely going to be very excited about that.
Yeah,
So I know that that's fantastic. That's
I think
awesome.
I know Lindsay Peterson too. Yeah. So
Lindsay, you're a known entity. That's a good thing. This is good.
yeah.
This is good. I love that. Okay. All right. So we've got a couple of other questions that I want to make sure we get to. So two questions coming in. Any alerts, and these are anonymous, so we can't give you a personal shout
That's
out.
okay.
That's not a slight. It's just that we don't have a
Nope.
name. So any alerts or alerting functions, or does that need to be built with forms and rules? And then the other question that individual asked was, how could that user be added? Does the university have to authorize that?
Totally. So the last question first, totally
Yeah.
up to you. Yeah. Touch base with your Slate captain or your Slate administrator, usually in the admissions office, and say, hey, this guy, I just saw this presentation. This guy Ken said I could be a user. Can we start talking about that? So really, it's just first bridging the gap of the departments, right? If you're not in admissions, go talk to them and say, I'd love to be a user in Slate. They would have to, excuse me, create you as a user and get you in there. And all the permissions and kind of access can be limited appropriately by the admissions office. But yeah, first question is to ask.
Great. Okay. And then the first question, any alerts or alerting functions, or does that need
Yeah,
to be built with forms and rules?
great question. So, yep, it's a form and it's a rule. Out of the box, there is not a turn on an early alert function in Slate. It's done via forms and rules and automation, right? So it's done via a form over here, let's say in this example, oops, wrong one, where I might be a faculty member or an advisor, and I say something's going on with Ken or Kendrick, right? The example. And I need to raise the alert because it's math and I want to identify myself and this is high priority and this is like, he's not feeling good, so on and so forth. Did I speak to the student? No. I can add a task here or tasks plural to then go alert other users within the Slate kind of ecosphere to say they have to go do something about this early alert. That alert then gets attached back to the student's record. You can trigger communications off of the submission of that alert to then go do something. So with minimal build, right? We're talking about a form, we're talking about some communications, and then maybe some automations. You can do an awful lot with early alerts. You can also, by way of kind of rule or automation, let's say, I just want to create a recipient list or a selection set of students that says they get this automatic type of communication or nudge if they meet this certain criteria. So yeah, some type of low GPA or GPA threshold, they get a soft text nudge that would be like an alert to them, but you could also have this be internal to trigger. Annie needs to get an email or a notification in Slate to let her know that her student dropped below this threshold.
Love that.
Good
Okay,
question.
fantastic. All right, we've got a couple more because you are such a popular guy. They've got you, so they've just got to make sure they can take advantage of it.
For sure.
All right. So another question is, any thoughts on bringing staff along who are concerned about FERPA
Yeah.
and data security?
Andrew, what's up? Great to see you. Great question. From
Love
a
it.
technical perspective, it's FERPA compliant. From a permissions and access perspective, that's where you might want to have those conversations with the FERPA folks on campus. From a technical, like I said, kind of security perspective, it absolutely meets that criteria. But then the next question that they would ask, and like you should ask yourself, is like, okay, well, who's in there seeing this stuff, right? That's where you'd probably get deep into the weeds of permissioning and user access to certain objects or records inside of Slate. That's a super short answer because we don't have much time, but it's a good one. And yeah, like generally it's okay.
Great. Okay. All right. Kate Bruce, wondering, do you know when the updates to campaigns are coming out? We're sort of sitting out some of our communication plans until it
Yeah, good
rolls
question.
out.
Great question. I don't know. I wish I'd seen that earlier. I would have messaged somebody on the side live. Email me.
Oh, beautiful. Love that.
I can follow up because it should be again, same thing kind of soon. The active scheduler stuff is soon.
Awesome. Fantastic. Okay.
Texting capabilities, promise this is the last
Yes.
one, right? Texting capabilities, 100% doable and entirely manageable inside of Slate. It is also, it's a number that's created in Slate. It's not your personal cell phone number. You have the ability to text, receive, send and receive, also bring in snippets. It's managed and it's managed and created and added to the person's timeline. Your texting platform that you use now, if it's a third party, can be entirely absorbed into Slate.
Right.
On the button 245.
We did it. Okay, wait, we have one more. Do you think we can do it? I think we can squeeze it in.
I'm cool with that.
All right. Lindsay Peterson, love, asked one more question. Of your slides for OSU, it has a Degree Works button. Does that deep link directly into a student specific record in Degree Works? Would love to know how to make that work.
Yes, I think so. Lindsay emailed me. I think they passed through parameters to go find the unique for matching ID or GUID of the person's record in DegreeWorks, I believe. I'll put you in touch with David Marriott either way, so just email me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Love this. All right.
Thank you guys
Okay.
for coming.
Yes, right. Thank you so much for being here. And I guess this is it. You all were, I mean, not it. We have one more session today, but for this session, this is it. So wanted to make sure that we share with you just a couple of other little nuggets before the end of the day. Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at conferences@carnegiehighereducation .com. Be sure to head back to the agendas to check out the final session for today, as well as the other sessions that are happening throughout the week. The last session for today is happening at 3:00 Eastern, and it is Carnegie, the data integration strategy your student recruitment is missing. And it's with Mike Keene, who is one of my favorite people that I get to work with at Carnegie. And you will love hearing from him as well. And I think that's it. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Ken, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. We so appreciate you.
My pleasure, and
And
thank you guys
thanks.
for having me.